Hi, all. Lee Varis here with Phototech Tuesday. Each week I'll be posting a new video about photography, technology, art, and, well, you know the drill. Today I'm returning to AI imaging, and I'd like to begin to explore the ramifications of this new technology applied to creative endeavors. I've been posting my AI experiments a lot recently, and I keep getting comments like, what's the prompt? Can you share the prompt? Many people assume that there's some kind of magic phrase that, if typed just right, will guarantee a fantastic result. And it's become pretty standard on AI image platforms to promote prompt sharing through daily challenges or prompt of the day events, and etc. Users have started copying visual styles from popular posts by using specific codes or prompt elements, trying to make their own versions of trendy AI generated images. But with so many recreating similar styles, one has to wonder, does anyone care about originality? And the human artist who's directing, manipulating these visual representations is considered to be, the creative work's author. That's a traditional artist who's directly hand manipulating the medium. And it's her mental image that's important because she's actively attempting to make her mental image visible to other humans. Okay, re-representing an internal reality to make that personal representation visible, audible, or delicious, or tangible in some way for others. That's at the heart of what we consider art. Historically, artists have relied on assistants to help them, mixing paints, organizing tools, or handling tasks that contribute to the final piece. The bigger the project, the more helpers it may need. The author of such a collaborative process is considered to be the person who directs the activities of the contributors. The director of a film is considered the auteur, even if he or she was not the writer of the screenplay. Now consider how many other technicians are involved in the creation of a movie, or an opera, or you name it. Aspiring artists of all types study the work of other artists, hoping to learn from their process how to create works of art that have value. There's an old saying that if you copy from one person, that's plagiarism. But if you copy from more than one, that's research. With AI tools and large language models now accessible, there's a new question: who really authors an AI-created work? Is it the person who writes the prompt? The AI model trained on millions of images? The code itself? We're still figuring this out. And meanwhile, the sheer volume of AI-generated creations is growing fast. But is any of it truly valuable? Well, this is a little complicated. The value of the art, often it's not significant. It's not really clear until long after it's first seen. Value can be influenced by more than just the artist. It might depend on how others perceive it. Sometimes art becomes valuable through private collectors who boost its status, while publicly shared art, like pop music, gains worth the more it resonates with people. But public tastes can be fickle, and the perceived value of an artist can drop due to social changes or controversies. I mean, think about how opinions have shifted on stars like Diddy. How popular is he these days? In this evolving world, it's worth considering how do we define creativity and value when technology plays such a big role? Let's consider the evolving value of AI-generated art. Right now, this field is still developing and brings all kinds of complex ramifications for society. Artists who created before the rise of AI hold a unique position in the legacy of human creativity. Could their pre-AI works eventually be valued more highly simply because they were made without technological assistance? And looking forward, what will this look like 20 or 30 years from now? Art has always been shaped by technology in one way or another. New advancements often inspire fresh styles or movements. For example, the invention of photography forever changed painting, and the Impressionist movement likely wouldn't have emerged without it. Similarly, recording technology transformed music, making possible genres and compositions that rely on electronics and effects. AI technology is the ultimate creative technology. one that is already having a huge impact on all forms of creative expression. Despite all efforts currently underway, this genie is never going back in the bottle. And the question is, are you going to be the one of the ones being granted wishes? Well, I'm not waiting for validation. I'm actively exploring AI image rendering in my creative process. And I like to share my current approach to image creation using Midjourney. And you can decide for yourself if artificial intelligence can offer any value for you at all. Let's dig in here. So I've been starting at Midjourney. I've tried most of them, and at the moment I'm thinking that Midjourney is just giving me a little bit more interesting creations. And I'll show you my process here. One of the things to get used to, and when you come to Midjourney, the first thing you see is like what everybody else has been doing. This is their Explore page, and you can just scroll along here and just kind of see. In general, I tend to see the same types of things. You know, people create these kind of fantasy illustrations, cute furry animals, these kind of 3D illustrations. These are all fairly common styles, you know, to try these sort of special effects shots and these kinds of things. This one's kind of interesting and is a little bit more closer to my own aesthetic. So, you know, I kind of like that. So these things can be inspiring, but I generally don't spend a lot of time here because I'm more interested in discovering something new, right? So let's go to the Organize page, and this is like where you can see everything that you've been doing, and you can filter it. So like I can look at only the things that I liked, and you'll see how I use this in a moment. But this cuts down on a lot of the clutter, right? So you can kind of go back and return to something that you liked before, maybe create a variation on it. Let's jump right in, and I'll just show you how I like to do things. So we'll just go over to the Create, and you can see a couple days ago I was working on this kind of stuff. So here's you can kind of see here, this image was made by a simple text prompt, this blend. That's all I put in there. So I'm blending between this image, right, and this image. Okay, so I've got two sort of unrelated images, and all I do is I type in blend. Okay, I wanted to jump in here. I grabbed those images from an existing image, but the way you put your images into Midjourney is you click on this little image icon here in the text prompt field, and now you can choose from any image that you've uploaded before, or you can simply drag and drop to place an image here. So I was picking this image and this image, right? So this now becomes this library that I use all the time to generate new images just by mixing it up. And you can even pick more than one, you know. So we can pick more than one, and then we can type in our blend command into the text field. Right? And now over here, you can kind of see this is where you set up the parameters for what you want. And that would be like the image size. So here I'm doing a 3x2 landscape. Stylization, I think the default is somewhere around here. This is sort of how powerfully Midjourney applies its own kind of internal style. And that's reflected in the standard mode. If you go to raw, this still has an effect, but it generally tamps down on the over stylization that is kind of typical. So for instance, people will use raw to make something look like a Polaroid snapshot or something, you know, where it doesn't look too slick. It looks more primitive. I'm kind of interested in the Midjourney aesthetic, so I'm going to use the standard here, and we'll start with, you know, the stylization at 500. Now, these sliders are also very interesting. The weirdness slider, and if you hover over, the little question mark thing here, weirdness does what it sounds like. It makes things more weird. And sometimes that's really a lot of fun to play with, but not absolutely necessary. So I'm going to leave it alone. And variety is a little kind of like weird, only it creates more variation between each generation, right? So we're going to use fast mode, and I have a personalization. If you go through and you select and you like enough images, you can develop kind of a personal preference code that you can apply, and I have it on by default. So Midjourney kind of already knows sort of what I like because I've gone through this personalized process. But I'm not giving it any information. I'm just saying blend between these two images. And these are radically different images created way before. This first one here of the fractal balls, that was done with Kai's power tools, like back in the 90s. So this is an early digital image that I was experimenting with. And this one is fairly recent image that Bobby and I did during a workshop. And so this is just photography with motion blur and drag the shutter kind of effect. And they couldn't be more different. The color scheme and the content of these images is completely different. So we're just gonna do a blend here. So that's my only prompt. I hit enter, and immediately it starts generating 4 versions for me to evaluate. I'm gonna. It takes a couple minutes. I'm gonna shorten this in the video. All right, so here they're coming in, and yeah, already I'm kind of this is going to be fruitful. Some of these, I kind of like this one. You can kind of see the fractal and the balls and the figure kind of getting worked into this. So I'm just scrolling along using my mouse here, and this one I'm not as enthused about. That one has some possibilities. Maybe that has some possibilities. Okay, so let's just rerun it. This is often my strategy. So I think it's going in kind of an interesting direction. Let's just go ahead and rerun it, see what else starts popping out. Okay, again, oh, I really like this one. So let's take a look at them close. And now that I've got 8 variations that I'm exploring at the moment, I'm going to start liking some of them. So in order to like something, I just hit the little heart here. And let's go, not so much. Oh, I really like this one. This one's going to be great. Not so much. I kind of like this one. We're going to explore that. That one, not so much. This one I really like. And I think this one's also worth exploring. Okay, so what's useful here, when you like something like that, I can go back to the organize, right? And just see those ones that I liked, right? And we can look at those by themselves without the distraction of the other ones. So these are the ones that I'm currently kind of interested in exploring. So at this point, we can create variations. So we can very subtle or very strong. I usually start by making strong variations. So I'm going to very strong there. I'm going to go back to this one. We're going to wait on that one. We're going to very strong on this one. Anything that I'm kind of thinking I like as it is, I'm going to wait on. And maybe we'll just do subtle variations. But anything that's like, it's kind of moving in an interesting direction, but I want to see some more variations, I'm going to start with, clicking on very strong. Now you'll notice now I'm in the organize area, but all the action is currently happening in the create area. So I've got 2 out of 3 that have rendered already. Let's take a look. I'm clicking on that, and we can kind of see the ones that have started happening. So you can kind of see you get 4 variations. We varied this one from down here, this one, right? And now we're looking at that. Well, that's not that one was varied, but there's that one. There's this one that we varied starting up here, and I like all of these better than this one down here, right? So let's now explore these. Let's see if there are any in here that I really like. This is great. I'm really kind of interested in that, so I'm going to go ahead and like that. That's really, I kind of like this diagonal action here. It's kind of interesting, but I'm going to hold off. I like the movement in this one. That's very cool. And this one has these 2 kind of angles going on, and it's also very dynamic. So I really kind of like that. All right, let's explore our other variations here. Okay, so this is really interesting. Let's dig in here. I think this one we might pursue some variations on this. This one's kind of interesting. I like that. And I like that. This one looks a little more awkward, so I'm going to leave that one alone. Boy, I'm just really, these are looking really good. This is really interesting. All right, let's go up here. Boy, that's pretty spectacular. It's maybe too chaotic. I mean, I'm really just registering my first reaction here. Whenever you have hands, it always gets a little weird. One day this will go away and we won't have to worry about this. But this is kind of interesting. That's pretty interesting. This red ball, see, I look at this and I go, ooh, this is got just in a bad spot. It's drawing the eye out, but that is easily fixed, right? So I'm thinking that's definitely worth a like. Well, that's kind of cool. I like that. Okay, so we went through and put our initial likes in that whole sequence of variations that we did. Right. So let's go back here, and I'm going to go ahead and look at this one. And now that I see, I can see the variations. This was our original that I wanted to vary. And let's see, do I still like that one or do I like that one better? I definitely like that one better. And how about this one? Yeah, I like that one better. And I really like that one. So at this point now, I could do more variations. Sometimes it's worth it. You find something that you really like, then let's go and vary subtle. So I'll click on subtle, because you never know. So what subtle does, let's go back up here. Subtle gives us 4 variations that are very similar, but they differ enough that you may decide that, which one do we like better? That one, this one, this one. I like this kind of movement in here. That's kind of interesting. Oh, and this is interesting too. So you can kind of see they're very similar, but they're different enough that now we can either choose to explore one of these options or we can just pick one. So I'm actually going to pick this one. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and like it. And let's go back to, well, all right. Just to make this a little shorter, I'm going to go ahead and follow through with this one image. So that means I'm going to upscale it. And you have two options: upscale subtle, upscale creative. So the difference between these, I've almost like 90% of the time upscaling subtle is better for me. Usually the creative process, instead of adding something unique in the upscale, like more texture or more detail or something like that, it often doesn't, it changes something but doesn't necessarily give us a better result. So I'm just going to go ahead and upscale subtle, because right now this is a fairly low res image. It's really just screen res. We'll upscale it subtle, and we'll at least get into a like 2600 pixels or so in the long dimension. So let's go ahead and upscale it, and we will wait for it up here. All right, let's take a look at this. So this is our upscaled version, and it's higher res, but it's not really enough res to like make a big print. So if I wanted to make a 16 by 20 print, or a 20 by 30, or even a 40 by 60, I mean, just think about how awesome this would be, gigantic on plexiglass or something. Big metal print maybe. Let's download this. So I've got my little download icon here. I click on that, and what's going to happen is it's going to download into my download folder. And now I want to take it and upscale it and make it really high res. And my go-to for AI generated images is this platform called Magnific. See something here similar I was working on. And Magnific Upscaler is this kind of interesting AI upscaler. So it completely re-renders the image at ridiculous resolution. So I'm going to just drag and drop my newly created image up there. Scale factor. To figure out the scale factor, you have 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, even 16 times. It gets kind of ridiculous. But you're at about 10,000 pixels, you sort of get limited. It won't give you much higher resolution than that. But we can go 4 times here, and we're just over 10,000 pixels in the long dimension. That is a huge file. I could make a 40 by 60 print, no sweat. So now let's look at the other options here. So we can have it optimized for, and the standard is it just sort of automatically chooses something. But I think this is a very powerful portion of the Magnific platform, is all these are different imaging models. So if it was a portrait, we have either soft or hard, depending on the feeling in the portrait. I'm going to use art and illustrations because I think a lot of what this image looks like to me, it looks more like a painting than a photograph. So I'm going to go ahead and go that way with it. Nature and landscapes and films and photography are pretty natural looking. If I had a landscape image, I might go for nature and landscapes, although it tends to look a little more painterly than films or photography. And then another really interesting one is this science fiction and horror. You can use that to dramatically alter the feeling of whatever you're upscaling. But in this case, I'm just going to go with art and illustrations. And we can write a prompt. I don't really think that's necessary. I don't really want to change too much about that image. But if you wanted to drive it in a certain direction, you could say, you could write a prompt in here to help push Magnific in a certain direction. In this case, I really just sort of want it to upscale it normally. These little question marks will kind of tell you, like, what these sliders do. So I like to think of this whole process, where I've created it in Midjourney just by using blend as the prompt. I think of it as inviting the AI to hallucinate. And that's what this creativity slider does. You want to ramp up the hallucination, add some interesting details maybe. It can get ridiculous. If you go all the way up, it will completely alter the image that it's upscaling. I don't really want that. But a little creativity I don't mind. HDR here does not stand for high dynamic range, and it stands for texture. So texture detail, if we wanted more texture detail. This is very, it's a very aggressive slider. So as soon as I start adding higher values in here, it wants to turn areas that, maybe have very subtle texture and really amp those up. Sometimes it really goes overboard, but sometimes the image just calls out for more texture, and you can use that. I'm going to keep it here at 0. I'm going to keep everything else at 0. We'll see. We'll see what happens in the upscale. We may want to change some of these slider settings. And now down here, this is the engine. There's 3 different ones, and it's worth understanding what these are, right? So Magnific Illusio is the smoothest upscaler. It will add the least amount of extra texture. Sharpie is the sharpest. It tends to emphasize texture even more. And Sparkle is somewhere in between. So for this image, I don't think it needs any more texture, and I think Illusio works better with art and illustration, so I'm just going to match it up that way. I can see what my final size is and how many tokens that will cost. I'm paying for this account, and you spend tokens in order to upscale images. So something to be aware of. You can kind of go up here. That's how many tokens I have left for this month, so I'm not in any trouble. But let's go ahead and upscale, and this will take a while. So we will we'll stop the recording, and I'll come back to this when it's finished. Okay, finally done. It does take a while, depending on how much traffic is on the server. It will take quite a while to scale these things up. Here we've got kind of the after is on the right as I move this across. You can't really see much here, right? So the trick is to hold down the Z key and then just sort of scroll in with your mouse, and we get in there, we can kind of see the level of extra sharpness and the kind of transformation of the detail. It starts to now look a lot like a painting. Again, we have to kind of hold down the Z key to scroll around in the image. And usually I have to watch out for weird hallucinations, right? So this transformation is fine. I don't mind that. But it seems to have wanted to put like what looks like an eye in here in the ear. So I may want to fix that. Not very clear what's going on there. But look at how it's added like all this interesting rich detail into the face. And yet it still looks sort of illustrated. It's got, the shadowing and the brush strokes, but look at that. That's amazing. So now that I'm more or less satisfied with this, I can download it. So you'll see over here the download icon. If I click on that, I get a choice between a PNG or JPEG. So JPEG has some compression in it. I'm going to go ahead, even though it's a much bigger file, I'm going to go ahead and download the PNG. And now that that's downloaded, I'm going to open it up in Photoshop. So I'm just switching over to Photoshop now. And Magnific and Midjourney, they don't actually use any color management. But by default, since they're online platforms, the colors are really sRGB. So even though they don't attach a profile to the document, it's an sRGB. So that's typically what I want to assign here. If you assign something else like Adobe RGB, it won't look as colorful, right? So I'm going to go ahead and we'll open this up. Now, the reason I'm opening it in Photoshop, besides being able to zoom in really easily here, is I don't want this weird eye in the ear, right? So I'm going to go ahead and we'll use generative fill here. I find it just seems a lot easier to do this in Photoshop than to try to do something like this. Well, certainly anywhere else after it's been upscaled, because most of the online, the AI imaging platforms can't address this many pixels. But it's a small area, so generative film should work. I'm going to go ahead and we'll try just clicking generative fill and not adding any prompt. Let's see what it does. So click on that. I'm not sure it understands this area, so we'll just see what it generates here. We could get lucky, or we may have to tell it that we want an ear there. Okay, well that's not bad. That kind of works. That also kind of works. Let's zoom out. Now that I can see the whole face, which ear do I like better? I'm kind of liking the simplicity of this one. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, I'm just going to go ahead and flatten it. Why not? Let's flatten it. And yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with that. I think that would make a really great print. So we'll go ahead and save that. And I'm just going to leave it the same format. Doesn't matter. And I'll bring that into Lightroom, and from there we can print. I can do whatever I want. So what's interesting to me, and now I'm back on Magnific, and look at a couple of other images. These are all created in very similar ways. And I'm just really enjoying this process of literally inviting Midjourney to hallucinate, and then taking it into Magnific to upscale it. It's really kind of, this whole process is really fascinating. And well, maybe we'll look at a little slideshow of other images created this way. But all of these start from my original photographs. So I kind of feel like I'm in some way they are copyrightable because they're based on my original photography. I'm hoping. We still don't know how this is all going to shake out, but I think eventually, once we get used to this new form of image rendering, we'll see that it's going to be adopted more widely, and all of the controversy will sort of settle down a bit. Okay, just to be thorough, I've brought this upscaled image into Lightroom, and I just wanted to point out that at this point I'm still not necessarily finished, and very often I'll go do a once-over in Lightroom, usually to open up the shadows a bit, because I know when I make a print, all these dark areas will just plug up. So often I'll just open up the shadows a little bit, and then maybe add just a little bit of clarity, which kind of pops the highlights in the shadows a bit. So depending on how much I want, I might just give it just a little bit like that. Let's look at some of these other images. So here's another one where maybe the shadows, I really want to get those up, open those up. And again, a little bit of clarity goes a long way. Don't want to overdo it, because this one has a lot of texture in it. Here's another one. Again, that shadow slider, so much easier to do here in Lightroom. And yeah, let's take a look at this one. Those dark areas really benefit by opening them up just a little bit. This one probably needs a little bit more. Yeah, we'll open that up quite a bit. Okay, so let's go back to the library, and I'm gonna just select a bunch here, and we'll just take a look at them. And we'll go to full screen. Just give you an idea of some of the really interesting things that Midjourney kind of creates by blending from two different images. You saw us work on this one. Really fascinating stuff, and I never get tired of this. So this abstraction stuff depends a lot on what the original images are. And I think that the fractal balls really generated quite a lot of interesting abstract elements that blended in with the shot of the figure. So it was, this kind of stuff is just fascinating to me. So really just the tip of the iceberg here. I call my approach to generative AI imagery an invitation to hallucinate. And I use this as a way to explore imagery that I could never imagine in my mind's eye. Yet I am still the director of this work, the navigator of the ship that is seeking out strange new worlds to go where no one has gone before. Live long and prosper. Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and hopefully this has provided some new inspiration for your own creative explorations. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you don't miss another Phototech Tuesday, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.